Welcome to another episode of Love and Guts. Today you're going solo with me, Linda G, a naturopath and nutritionist with an intense interest in bowel movements and one who specialises in all things digestive health. This episode will be part one of 3 podcast episodes on understanding constipation, the poo diaries or lack thereof. This first episode runs through what is constipation, the different types that exist, and some causes. Episode 2 will be on what happens when we don't go regularly. Episode 3 will be what we can do about bowels that just won't cooperate. This episode is sponsored by Better Me Tea, a tea designed to promote improved gut health and digestion, assisting those who struggle with constipation and sluggish bowel movements to go to the bathroom with ease. If you wanted to get your hands on Better Me Tea, just go to my shop page and you will find it there. And as always, guys, this information is not intended to diagnose or treat a medical condition, so please ask your health practitioner before beginning any new treatment. So let's get straight into it. As we know, pooping is a part of our manufacturing process, our human manufacturing process. It's completely natural and highly essential. We instinctively know that we need to poop and feel uncomfortable when we don't go for days. But do we know why pooping regularly is important? Let me shed some light and hopefully extinguish any embarrassment as well. Let's first start with what is constipation. It can be any or all of the following. Incomplete emptying of the bowels. You can poop daily, but you often feel dissatisfied as if there's more that can be evacuated. You might experience hard, dry stools that need excessive strain to pass. You might experience infrequent or unsuccessful evacuation of the colon. You might need to manually maneuver or manually remove the feces from you. Even loose stool may seep out around a hard impacted stool in a desperate attempt of your body to get rid of the waste. This is otherwise known as bowel overflow or fecal incontinence and can be a bit confusing for some. Other digestive symptoms such as abdominal bloating, abdominal cramping, wind can also accompany constipation. So what is normal? There's no normal poop pattern, only averages. Studies have shown that people poop anywhere between 3 times a day to 3 times a week. Many experience bowel movement irregularity, and women tend to have more sluggish bowels than men. I try to get individuals to aim for 1 complete, satisfying bowel movement a day. 2 to 3 is fine too, but for many it's rare. Rarely do I see people that are comfortable with only 3 bowel movements a week. So why do we poop? Pooping is our body's natural way of removing waste, toxins, and hormones. Waste, otherwise known as stool or feces, is predominantly made up of water, bacteria, indigestible vegetable fiber, metabolic waste, and those things our body wants to get rid of, such as medicine remains, cholesterol, and food colorants. The skin, kidneys, lymphatic system, lungs, and bronchioles are also elimination organs, but it is the bowel that is the most abused and neglected. When we don't get rid of these things, we essentially recycle them. More on the consequences of this in the next installment of the constipation series. However, in a nutshell, think self-poisoning, otherwise known as auto-intoxication, and inflammation. So what are the different types of constipation? Some of the primary forms of constipation are IBS or SIBO related constipation. There's also slow transit constipation, which is often caused by a problem with the nerves or muscle. This compromises the ability of the intestines to push and move stool through. A subset of slow transit colon is colonic inertia, a severe form of slow colon transit where there is a dysfunction of the muscles and nerves. With colonic inertia, you might see people going as little as once a month, and often there's no urge to go. I've actually seen this in clinic myself. Postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, otherwise known as POTS, is another reason that some people constipate. This condition is mostly seen in women. This condition also involves the nerves. It's a condition that may be driven by an autoimmune component and involves sympathetic overdrive. As a result of the sympathetic overdrive, the parasympathetic part, which is the rest and the digest part of the autonomic nervous system, is affected. The vagus nerve, when compromised, affects the peristalsis of the colon, which is the muscular the contractions that happen in the colon that allow the food in the waste to push on through. The sympathetic overdrive also increases the tone of the anal sphincter muscles, which contribute to constipation. Dysnergia, otherwise known as pelvic floor dysfunction constipation. This type of constipation is a learned behavioral problem. It involves poor coordination of the muscles, organs, and nerves involved. For example, when defecating, the anal muscles tighten instead of relax, or they have lost the coordination to push. There is an overlap between slow transit time and dysnergia. Dysnergia is commonly caused by painful pooping, dysfunction of the gut-brain axis, poor toileting habits, back injury, childbirth, and possibly a history of physical or sexual abuse or disordered eating. Some secondary causes may be blockages, which if suspected requires thorough investigation via your GI doctor. A colonoscopy or a CT scan may be required. Sometimes this can be cancer or a cancer-related causes, such as colorectal cancer, tumor compression of the large intestine. Constipation can also be a side effect from some medications, and there are many, guys, believe me. I'm only going to label a few here. So there's analgesics, opioids, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, otherwise known as NSAIDs, antihistamines, antispasmodics, antidepressants, antipsychotics, antihypertensives, which are your high blood pressure medications, calcium channel blockers, iron supplements, which is why it's so important to get the correct form of iron, so an iron that doesn't constipate, and we'll talk about this more in episode 3. And antacids that contain aluminium can be constipating. Constipation can also be a cause of some other secondary conditions such as neurological conditions, strokes, multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, dementia, autonomic neuropathy, pain secondary to anal fissures or hemorrhoids, and spinal cord lesions. Endocrine causes can cause constipation, so hormonal changes such as hypothyroidism, diabetes, hyperparathyroidism. As I mentioned, diabetes, there's a nervous system and possible muscle involvement, and it can also be linked to poor blood sugar control. All of these things can contribute to constipation. And there's a link between Parkinson's disease and constipation. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a condition of excess elasticity in connective tissue and joints, can contribute to constipation. So those that have Ehlers-Danlos can have this excess elasticity in their intestines. Because the abdominal organs are not held in position well due to the hyperflexibility and hypermobility. This can affect and often obstruct the small and the large intestine, causing problems with motility, which is again the movement in the intestines that allows things to push on through and be evacuated from the body. ELOS can also contribute to SIBO. And as I mentioned previously, there can be constipation as a presentation of SIBO. You can also have diarrhea or a mixed constipation and diarrhea, but constipation can be a symptom of SIBO. And idiopathic constipation. So idiopathic simply means when a condition has arisen spontaneously without any known cause. Other causes of constipation, geez, I'm hoping that you're still with me, guys. As you can see, there are so many drivers to constipation. And by no means is this an exhaustive list. So other causes can be a poor diet that lacks sufficient fiber, water, healthy fats, or if there's any changes to diet. If the lifestyle is sedentary, so if there's lack of movement, if there's high levels of stress, emotional trauma, anxiety, depression, suppression, the HPA accessing, there's a gut-brain involvement here. And if there's an anatomical dysfunction, so disorders or malfunction of the colon, rectum, anal sphincter, central or peripheral nervous system, as we spoke about a little bit before, And this is an interesting one. Neglect. Some neglect the urge to go out of habit or lack of privacy. And sometimes anemia can cause constipation. Aging, so due to structure, anatomy, lifestyle, diet, disruption to the chloride channel. Pregnancy and even after birth, up to 3 months post-birth. Menstruation, so digestive disturbance can occur at different hormonal phases in the menstrual cycle. Common emotional symptoms experienced during this time can add to this. And other gastrointestinal disorders such as diverticulosis, Hirschsprung disease, megacolon, rectocele, which is a bulging of the front wall of the rectum into the back wall of the vagina, and intestinal strictures, which are narrowings in the intestine. This can make it difficult for food matter to pass through. And other possible causes may be the presence of a virus, appendicitis, food poisoning, organic or systemic disease, intestinal radiation, and metabolic disorders such as low levels of magnesium, calcium, and potassium levels in the blood, and also high levels of calcium in the blood, and hypopituitarism. I can never say that. Phew, there we have it. And if you've stuck with me, thank you very much for listening to this first installment of All Things Constipation. Episode 2 should be live next week. But if you can't wait to begin your health journey and are tired of feeling rather average, you can always schedule in an appointment today by going to the book an appointment page on my website or email me at info@lindagriprich.com. My naturopathic and nutritional consultations are run online, which means if you are located anywhere in Australia, I can work with you. If you're unsure whether seeing a holistic practitioner is right for you, schedule in a complimentary 15-minute Q&A session with me, where you get the opportunity to ask how my consultations are run and what to expect from treatment plans. Again, simply go to my website, book a consultation page, and you will find the tab there. Over and out, people. I hope you enjoyed that. I thoroughly did. And I will see you all next week for the next installment of the Constipation Diaries.